The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Good morning and welcome to Aging Horizons. We're quickly approaching the scam season, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we'll be talking with AARP's president of Montana as to what they're seeing both here and around the nation. They're reaching out to you for a scam via your telephone and your computer, and there are some common signs that you need to be aware of, and we'll go over them, so stay tuned.
Every 65 seconds, someone is affected with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Many become isolated at a time when help is most needed. If you or someone you love is affected, help is available, both for people with memory loss and their caregivers. Memory loss can feel frightening, but you are not alone. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
This is Bill. He just received his new Medicare card and is following some simple rules to protect himself from fraud. He knows to never give out his Medicare, Social Security, or bank number over the phone. And this is Nancy. She knows that to detect any problems, she always reads her Medicare Summary Notice or Medicare Advantage EOB to make sure the billing is correct. Both Bill and Nancy know that anything suspicious can be reported to Montana SMP at 1-800-551-3191.
45 years, 2 packs a day. It's like $80,000. I thought I was just hurting myself until I fell asleep in a chair with a cigarette. The whole house went up. I lost it all. I knew smoking was expensive, but I never thought it would cost me everything.
The human heart. Even at its strongest, it's a fragile muscle. Chest and arm pain, shortness of breath, are signs of a heart under attack. But 3 numbers can save a life. Dial 911 at the first sign of a heart attack. Quick response from medical experts can save your life.
I was 45 and it happened to me, a heart attack.
Dialing 911 saved Ryan's life. Now he's here and he's healthy.
This message sponsored by Mission Lifeline, Montana.
Welcome to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm your host, Brian Lamore. And as I mentioned, we were talking about scams today. There are 2 types of scams. There's imposter and there's cyber scams. And we're talking with Al Ward. You're the president of Montana AARP. Welcome to the show. Back to the show.
Good to see you, Brian. It's been a while.
It has, maybe too long. But Al, let's start at the top. You know, we have the imposter and we have the cyber scams. Let's first go over imposter scams. Could you define what that is and how do we recognize them?
Well, imposter scams are, kind of what they sound like. Mm-hmm. A person is actually being an imposter of somebody that you would normally talk to. Like an IRS agent or an FBI agent or somebody from the court, somebody from a business that you do business with. And basically, they're total frauds. They have nothing to do with what they say they're selling you. And basically what they're doing is trying to get either money or information from you.
Mm-hmm. And that starts out with they're trying to scare you, aren't they? That's the first thing. They want to frighten you so that you're, oh my God, I gotta address this quickly.
Well, there are two focuses that they have. They either want to scare you really bad, or they want to put something out in front of you that you really want. And so either one, you get excited, and once you get excited, you start forgetting to do your due diligence and ask the questions that you need to ask. Mm-hmm. For the most part, and the other thing that's interesting is that imposter scams are the number 1 scam in the nation as far as the numbers of scams. And they're very different. There's the IRS scam, there's the grandparent scam. what we're seeing in Western Montana right now are virtual kidnapping scams, where the person is telling you that they've kidnapped one of your loved ones, and that if you pay them a ransom, they won't be hurt. So I mean, there's a ton of different kinds of scams, but they all fall into the same category, which is imposter scams.
Mm-hmm. And then it's urgent. I mean, you have to act now, and they want, I'll say, quick money, which would mean your credit card, or do they ask for your bank account numbers?
Actually, it's amazing. One of the things that really frustrates me is some of the ways they tell you to send them money. Mm-hmm. For instance, you may be the victim of an IRS scam, and they tell you that you need to go down and get a iTunes card from the local grocery store and give them the number off of it. Mm-hmm. My first question when they say that is, when was the last time I paid my taxes with an iTunes card? And yet, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, in the wintertime, we had a couple that was a victim of a grandparent scam here in Billings on a Sunday night, so it was late, and they went down to get the money, and they ended up on the ice, rolled the car, and the grandfather was killed.
Oh boy.
So these kind of things are really serious, even beyond the fact that people are sending them money that they can't afford. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Al, can you maybe give us an idea of the scale of this imposter syndrome or cyber scale? I mean, it must be a lot of money in it, because I'm getting a lot of calls and emails myself.
According to the Federal Trade Commission, in 2019, Montanans lost $3.9 million to scams.
Wow.
In 2020, they lost $5.9 million.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's not a few bucks.
Yeah. And, it's important to point out that you're with AARP, and this is one of the aspects that you look out for the elderly. I mean, there's a lot that AARP does in Montana for our elderly.
Well, the unfortunate thing, I think, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't think scams are that important as far as crime is concerned, because they're property crimes, and, we have a lot more urgent things with violent crime. But the bottom line is, if an elderly person loses a major portion of their nest egg, they're not going to get it back. Mm-hmm. And that's going to change their quality of life forever. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's a serious problem for people who lose a big portion of their nest egg.
Mm-hmm. So basically, you're saying that once this happens, it's very difficult to recover that, because who knows where the scammer's calling from.
The unfortunate thing that we're seeing, and I'll give you an example that the FBI agent told me about. These Western Montana virtual kidnapping scams are mostly coming from South America. Oh. So, I mean, they're really trying to work with law enforcement throughout the nation and the world, but it's really difficult, especially when you start thinking about jurisdiction.
Okay. Well, we're drawn to a close on this segment, and what I'd like to point out that the imposter crimes are many times they come from a recognized company. They are maybe charities, they claim to be family, friends, maybe a lawyer or a debt collector, or even celebrities might call you up. And of course, AARP has a lot of information from the website and the telephone number we have on the screen, but there's a lot more. Stay tuned.
I
think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
Elder abuse is a growing problem, and it's happening right here in our Montana communities. At least 1 in 10 older adults are victims of physical or emotional abuse, financial exploitation, or neglect. To get help or report elder abuse, call your local area agency on aging or Adult Protective Services at 1-844-277-9300.
I was the last guy you'd expect to get diabetes. I was a competitive runner and I always took care of myself. So when I was diagnosed, it kind of threw me. But it's really encouraging to know I'm not alone with it. There are a lot of other people going through the same things as I am. It takes some effort. You have to keep after it. Exercise, meds, and diet are the key. But there are a lot of folks who want me to succeed. Diabetes is not the end of the world. With effort and attitude, you can have a normal life.
When I first got here, I was struggling. No money, sleeping on the living room floor of a friend's apartment.
Diana Johnson, Energy Share Coordinator.
I know what it's like to need a hand. Now that I work with Energy Share, I help people pay their winter heating bills. I don't care if you're a veteran, a senior citizen, have a family, or are single. Energy Share is here to help.
If you need help paying your power bills, call or visit Energy Share, helping Montana families get through the winter since 1984. Welcome back to Aging Horizons. I'm your host, Brian Lamore, and we're continuing a discussion about scams, how scams and scammers approach you both via the telephone and the internet. Rejoining us is AARP Montana President Al Ward. And Al, let's talk about safety online. Many seniors are getting back onto computers, or they're getting on for the first time to talk to family all over the world, really. But we need to do it safely. What are some of the pointers that you can give us?
Well, first of all, I think you really need to have good software on your computer, good security software that deals with stuff like, some of the things that, people use to actually get into your computer and use it against you. And that's one of the things that you need to have. But the other thing is you need to keep it up to date. Because one of the things that's important about security software is that, the scams change. Not very much, but they change enough so that the software doesn't trap the things that you're trying to trap. And so they have to generate new focuses on software. So you need to update the software as often as it needs to be updated. And the software will automatically update if you set it up to do that. But the other thing that's important is you also need to update the programs that you have, the apps and that you have on your computer. Mostly because those programs, when they're updating, they put security patches in them for things that they know are causing problems. And so you need to keep those security patches updated.
And a lot of this is pretty passive, right? It doesn't take a lot of action on your part for a scammer to get in, but the software will be updated. Just having the computer on, you could wind up having problems.
Right. Yeah. So, that's a big part of it. I mean, hackers, are out there hacking all the time. As a matter of fact, one of my friends, Paul Greenwood, who used to be a district attorney in San Diego, talks about the fact that 18-year-olds in the Caribbean actually own $1 million houses because they spend all their time on the phones scamming people.
Well, if a person, what are the kind of the first signs that you maybe were been cyber hacked? Is it just pretty passive? You don't know, you don't see, you don't notice, or are there signs?
Some of the things that might be a clue would be that your computer is slowing down. Obviously, as we change computers, every 2 or 3 years, they're, getting more powerful all the time. So sometimes that's not the total, focus is that it's slowing down, because sometimes the computers do that anyway. But the bottom line is, if you see an increase in your power bill and your computer is slowing down, there are several things that could be going on. One of the things that has been going on in the last couple of years has been cryptocurrency. Hackers get onto your computer and use your computer to get cryptocurrency, and they can do that with several hundred computers, and they end up with a lot more cryptocurrency than they had to begin with. So the bottom line is, when you start seeing, things that are telling you your computer isn't working the way it should be, that's the time to look into it and make sure that it's not that you're getting hacked.
So, Al, would you advise an individual to turn off their computer when they're not using it, rather than leaving it on 24 hours a day?
Yeah, turn off your computer when you're not using it. That's the basic way of keeping people from getting into your information.
And watch your safety program that you have on there, your security program. I know I have one. Probably the major companies that provide security software, any of them would be adequate, right?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah, they're the ones that you see all the time, like Norton and some of those, are the kind of program that you need. Some of them are memory hogs, so sometimes you end up losing some computer power as a result of them. But the bottom line is, you need to have something that's actually looking out for people trying to, get into your computer and take information from it.
And maybe it takes up some memory, but to generalize, if you're retired, you're not a power user. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, as far as cybersecurity is concerned, one of the things that we're seeing more of here in Montana is I always forget the term, but it's basically that they're actually holding your computer hostage. They come into your system.
Ransomware.
And ransomware, that's what it is. Yeah, ransomware.
Okay. Well, tell you what, Al, we're going down to a close on this segment. Let's talk more about that next, so stay tuned.
Okay.
Respite. It's okay to need it. It's okay to want it. Will you provide it?
The hard part about having outside help is that there's not a lot of people out there who can do that kind of work. We've been very fortunate that our Bonnie has been with us for 7 years. I don't know what I'd do without her. I need her in our lives. She's our second mother. And I can't help but think of her that way.
To find out how to change lives, including your own, call 800-224-6034 or visit respite.mt.gov.
Questions about Medicare and other types of insurance? Contact the State Health Insurance Assistance Program office to get answers to questions like, what is the difference between Medicare and Medicaid? And how do you decide if you need Medicare supplemental insurance? This insurance counseling program is not a sales program. It is available to provide answers to your insurance questions. For more information, call the State Health Insurance Assistance Program office at 1-800-332-2272.
I have so many questions about power of attorney. Well, some powers of attorney are for finances and others are for healthcare decisions.
A power of attorney designates an agent who would make decisions on your behalf.
While making a power of attorney, you have the ability to control your agent's power.
You also have the ability to decide when that POA would take effect.
Wait, am I giving away all my rights? Power of attorney isn't a license to make any decision for you, just those that you've specified.
Your agent should be somebody that's working in your best interest, but it should also be somebody that you would trust.
What if they try to abuse their power?
Protective measures like third-party accounting, secondary signatures, defined spending and gifting limits can help protect against financial exploitation. An agent's powers can always be limited by a customized power of attorney, and they can be revoked by you or the court if the power of attorney is abused.
So carefully drafted estate planning documents can help ensure that your finances are monitored, but not abused.
If you or someone you know is being exploited, please report to Aging Services Bureau at 844-277-9300 or the Legal Service Developer at 1-800-332-2272. This message sponsored by the DPHHS Aging Service Bureau.
Welcome back to Aging Horizons. I'm your host, Brian Lamore, and continuing our discussion about both cyber and imposter scams that are coming to Montanans and, in fact, everyone around the nation. We're talking with AARP's president for Montana, Al Ward, and let's go over some of the do's and don'ts that you've recognized through your work and your professionalism, both before AARP and as law enforcement.
Well, you know, a lot of it has to do with, since a lot of it comes on telephone, you know, don't always answer the phone. Use your caller ID to give you an idea of who's calling you, and if you don't recognize the number, let it go to voicemail. And if it's somebody you know, you'll get a message from them. If it's a con, you probably won't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one of the big things, is to make sure that you don't answer the calls that you don't have to. The second thing is, if you get an unsolicited call like that and it starts down that path, hang up. That's the easiest thing to do. And I know, you know, since I deal with elders a lot, people have been taught over the years not to hang up, that it's rude to hang up on people. Well, you know, it's rude to steal your money. You know, so my thought is it's more rude to steal your money than it is to hang up. So.
Yes.
And it's also important, you know, if somebody calls you, or, you know, online you end up with you know, supposedly a company that is telling you that they owe money, that you owe money or whatever, verify that with a number that you know, not the number they give you. You know, shut it down and call, you know, like with the IRS. They say that they're going to send somebody to arrest you because you're back in taxes. I have a problem with that because I usually know how my taxes are. You know, maybe around tax season for a little while, I might not know, but the bottom line is, I'm going to know if I owe taxes that I haven't paid. You know, so when somebody calls, first of all, you need to know that the IRS doesn't work that way.
Right.
Government agencies don't call you on the phone. IRS, basically, if they have a question about your taxes, they're going to send you a letter saying, get your taxes for this year and come down and talk to our auditors. Because that's the way they do it.
Yeah.
And they're not going to threaten to arrest you.
Yeah.
You know, we see the same things with people call up and say, you were supposed to be at jury duty and you didn't show up, so we're going to arrest you. Well, they don't do that.
No. Yeah.
They'll ask you to come down and talk to the judge or talk to, you know, the court clerk. But for the most part, they're not going to call up and say that I'm going to arrest you if if you don't talk to it.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
And for the most part, they're not going to call you. They're going to send you a letter.
Yeah. Well,
That's how they got you on the jury duty in the first place.
Brought up a lot of good points there. I know on my telephone, if I don't recognize the number, I let it go to my voicemail, and my voicemail's full. But there, my intro is, prove you're not a robot, send me a text. And I don't get texts from them. But I did get called from a scammer one time. I don't know why he answered it, but they had my last 4 digits of my Social Security number, and he was very persuasive till he said, we need your credit card number. And I was like, no, you don't do things with a credit card number. So I just strung him out as long as I could. He got really mad, which was a good technique. I recognize that. But what about that? When you actually get someone and they're mad, how do you handle that? That might be a scammer.
So if they're mad and they're angry at you, just hang up on them.
Yeah.
Realistically, why do you want to sit there and take the punishment?
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to, especially if you don't know who they are.
Yeah, well, I was having fun with them.
Well, the unfortunate thing is if they can keep you on the line, they have a higher percentage chance of actually getting you to give them some money or some information. Mm-hmm. One of the things that's really important with imposter scams is, and especially, like the virtual kidnapping scams, find out what they know and don't give them information that you know.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is typical of a grandparent scam is somebody calls up and says, Grandma, I'm in jail. Can you send me money? And the first thing out of Grandma's mouth is, Johnny, is that you? Well, you're just given the name of your grandson.
Right. Yeah.
The big deal is that you're caught off guard.
Right.
And when you're caught off guard, typically you're going to, maybe come up with some information that they don't have. But, one of the things that I've always thought about confidence games, which is basically what cons are, is the confidence criminal is basically trying to build your confidence in them. Mm-hmm. And they do it by asking you information that you should never tell anybody. And the more information they get, the more they can show you that they're like you.
Yeah.
And the more they convince you that they're like you, the more you're going to be willing to maybe talk to them about sending them some money or whatever.
So, Al, we've quickly drawn to a close on the show. Thank you so much for your valuable information. And for our viewers, AARP is a wealth of information. We've had some telephone numbers and some websites that have been up. Maybe you should write them down. Go to them. Just educate yourself up in front of a call or a scam, because on the other end, it might be too late to recover any money. For Aging Horizons, I'm Brian Lamore. Thank you for joining us.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.